Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Tina Jha. Chief Election Commissioner Sunil Arora has expressed hope that the concept of remote voting may see the light of the day by the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Addressing an event on Saturday, the Chief Election Commissioner said a pilot project could begin in the next 2 to 3 months. He also informed that earlier this year, the poll panel had started a research project for enabling remote voting in consultation with IIT Madras and eminent technologists from IITs and other leading institutions of the country. Over the last few months, a dedicated team has been working towards giving shape to this project, and the Chief Election Commissioner is hopeful that the first pilot project could be rolled out in the next 2 to 3 months. The facility will enable those who cannot be at their polling booths on the day of the election due to various reasons to exercise their franchise from a remote location. So on this edition of The Big Picture, we will discuss in detail about this remote voting facility that the Election Commission is working on and how this technology will help in greater inclusion for election so that no voter is left behind. Joining me on the program today are Mr. Akshay Rawat, former DG Election Commissioner of India, and Mr. Subimal Bhattacharjee. He is a digital technology expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Mr. Rawat, let me begin the program today with you. Over the decades, what we have seen is that technology has been a great enabler, especially when it comes to conducting free, fair and smooth elections in India. How significant will this new concept of remote voting be towards greater inclusion in the elections in the country?
Yeah, thank you. This is a brilliant discussion from every perspective and very timely also. We have to go to the core values of Indian nation and the whole electoral system. Here, we are not talking technology per se. We are talking about quite a few democratic, social, and ethical foundations on which the country's system rests. You see, go back to the early days of independence when India became a free country, when unlike many other countries in the world, our founding fathers gave the franchise in the hands of ordinary Indians in one go. Irrespective of the level of literacy, the high levels of poverty, the chaotic condition which prevailed immediately after the partition and the freedom. So it was, many people thought it's a very difficult adventure. In fact, the most charitable comments were that it is an experimentation in democracy, right? So, but anyone who was an adult, 21 and above, was given this power to vote, the right to vote. It's a constitutional right. But just see, election after election, 50, 51, and up to 2019, what we have seen, what I describe as democracy deficit. In the last 10, 15 years, things have improved quite a bit. The people's participation have increased. That is why we have come to see what you just now told, Tina, that no voter is to be left behind. Earlier, we have also Election Commission's motto that a higher participation, greater participation for a stronger democracy. We are talking about inclusive elections. But see, election to election to election, we have 45, 50, 55, 60% voting. Where do other votes go? Then to what extent are we a robust democracy? We are a great functional democracy, the largest democracy of the world. But is that all? Are we not supposed to be a complete and without deficit democracy? So that thought came to the Election Commission for a few years now. That is why we begin to pick up every vote which was not there as a part of the voting exercise. So we have moved to 65, towards 70 in some cases. It has improved. But still, and when technology is available, and we are dealing with scale of 1.4 billion population, 60% of them are averagely, on an average, our electors. And if about 28 crores by the last count of 2019 election, voting doesn't happen. Some don't happen because they don't want to vote. They didn't vote. That's also bad. But those who could not vote, that's another category. We are today discussing perhaps that category in terms of remote voting, making it possible. And India being a superpower in democracy and a superpower in technology, why not harness the strength to fulfill our democratic aspirations, and which is absolutely necessary to make our government, our election system truly representative by getting all the people who are lost back into the election by using the strength of technology, which we already have.
Absolutely. Okay, so when it comes to greater inclusion of voters in the election process and strengthening our democracy, it is a significant move. But how is it going to work? Let me take that question to Mr. Bhattacharjee. Help us understand the technology behind this project that will, of course, have to be safe, secure, trustworthy, and at the same time transparent. So going forth, what will this technology be like? How is it going to work? Help us understand the concept, Mr. Bhattacharjee.
Thank you, Tina, for inviting me for this show. As Mr. Raut has just expressed, we have been a nation very strong on technology. We have been a nation very strong on the deployment of technology. And, as much as criticism that the Aadhaar system faced, but if you see till date, it is, a very significant technology which we have securely deployed and are utilizing it every day, some millions of times. Now that apart, there are so many other systems. The income tax system is a great story to tell for this country. It automatically comes that the world's largest democracy must have functional technology in the conduct of elections and in the efficient conduct of elections. So one of those steps all these years has been the EVM. It has definitely, made the whole conduct of elections free, fair, and something is an easier to handle, and of course, show that while there would be concerns around technology, here was a system where we respected every concern that if you voted or if you used the internet, which in many cases seemed to be not safe, here were standalone machines operating on technology. Now, the next logical step that comes is that, how do you have far much more inclusive voting? How do you have people to vote from wherever they are? If you see a lot of migrant workers, if you see a lot of students from here and there, particularly have to go back, to their places for voting. And now with staggered voting almost in every election, everyone is always on the move when an election comes. So I think definitely the Election Commission was absolutely pertinent in thinking that how do we ensure remote voting? And when we do that, we have to have the reliability of the result, the secrecy of the vote, and the protection of personal data. As I mentioned, internet is safe, but yet unsafe. It depends upon, how much of technology you use, yet it might not, be always foolproof in terms of being not to be hacked or not to be disrupted. So here, the Election Commission has come up with the idea, and as per media reports, which I have also seen, that IIT Madras has been on it. The Chief Election Commissioner had mentioned it on the Election Day celebrations in January, and a few days back again he reiterated about the some pilots could be happening. So now, what are the possible technologies that come to this scenario? Is it something that you are outrightly going and you are given some specific idea and you are going to the internet and voting? No, that is not the case, as has been sufficiently made out from the Election Commission. So here, a system based on blockchain technology is being spoken about that ensures that, the whole system is decentralized. The whole people in the network that need to know on a real-time basis, and there can be no duplication of the efforts. Now, even if you leave the blockchain effort, and even if you looked at, conducting the elections by taking, or by registering an individual who goes to a dedicated location and casts his vote, via the internet, and then, of course, it is again tallied at the end. But why blockchain becomes important, and blockchain has been the fundamentals on which something like a cryptocurrency has gained currency all across the world. In the last few days, you would have been seeing that cryptocurrency has been growing up and up and up, although we are still thinking about its pros and cons from a legislative point of view also in the country. But when it comes to the application of blockchain technology in the conduct of election, what could be a possible working model could be premised on three things. Number one, a blockchain remote voting process would involve the voter identification and authorization. Now, that is very, very important. One of the reasons, you would have seen the law minister also telling the other day about trying to see if the Aadhaar database and the electoral voter database could be, compared or could be tallied and, so that the duplication or duplicate voting really doesn't happen. So one of the first things that would happen out of that system is a voter identification and authorization, which will use a multi-layered IT-enabled system, and which would have biometrics, which would have web cameras, at that particular bit. Once the authentication is done, now remember, even an Aadhaar-based authentication could happen. Even if I try to pick up from what the law minister said and what the Chief Election Commissioner has said, almost around the same time, it could be then, of course, if you have to bring Aadhaar and link it to the electoral roll, then it will require a piece of legislation because it will go beyond what the Supreme Court had defined in their privacy case. But coming to your point, that once an authorization happens, either usage of an Aadhaar or without an Aadhaar, then you go to a blockchain-enabled, a personalized e-ballot paper that is generated. That's a very unique thing that is generated, which finally allows the person to cast his vote. So once the vote is cast, and that is done in a very securely encrypted, and a blockchain hashtag is generated, that hashtag notification would be sent to all the people in that chain. So
but
that
Mr. Bhattacharjee, is it foolproof to maintain transparency and confidentiality of voting? Because going forward, this is going to be the biggest apprehension.
Absolutely. I think blockchain offers that facility of at the same time allowing privacy as well as at the same time allowing even the security. The candidates and the political parties, in whichever manner the Election Commission devises the whole system, will at the same time simultaneously know, along with the Election Commission officials at every level, about when a vote has been cast and what is the total number of votes that has been cast from a particular area. So today, even without somebody directly going to the internet to vote remotely, but under a process goes to a certain place, uses the internet technology, in that blockchain enables that privacy and security is maintained, and that's where the leap in election conduct we take using these technologies. And I think Election Commission is very right in trying to think about such a activity right now, when we have 3-4 years to go to the general election. So it would be good to conduct some of those, mock drills and everything, and ascertain and give the confidence to the huge electorate in this country.
Absolutely, not just the electorate. I think not just the electorate, all the other stakeholders as well. Mr. Rawat, let me bring that question to you, because there are several stakeholders involved, the political parties, the Election Commission. It will require a lot of changes. So going forward, what are the kind of changes that the Election Commission or this process would entail, that the Commission will have to ensure that they take place, and also to win the trust first of the voters, then to convince the political parties? Because even currently with the EVMs, we see it's such a tamper-proof and smooth procedure in our country, but the losing side always questions the EVMs. So with this technology coming into place, it is bound to be under scrutiny by the political parties. So convincing them is going to be the biggest challenge for the Election Commission.
Tina, you have hit the nail on the head. In fact, I was going to pick up a few things from Swimolji's narration about the technological possibilities. They're all great. But three things, in fact, one or two things he mentioned as well. One is the transparency of the electoral process. Second is the secrecy of voting, which is sacred in election. You must have heard millions of stories about security deployment at polling stations. And even the phases in election are decided based on security availability. And Election Commission takes so much care in raising a polling station. Inside that, the cardboard box or something in which the voter can go and vote in secrecy. Now, internet voting at home, that's why is a clear no-no for obvious reasons. But most importantly, what you pointed out is the stakeholders' confidence. And stakeholders it starts with the political parties. And we have seen the difficult story of EVM acceptance over decades. And even till now, every election after, we have certain stories, certain claims, certain appeals, certain petitions. And, whether it is a loser's argument or something, but we have something coming up. VVPAT brought a level of solution, but that also has its problems. And we have sometime electronic, sometime mechanical failure of the equipment at the polling station on real-time basis, right? So this will involve the blockchain-based hardware that would be developed to facilitate remote voting. Over a period of time, the aspiration is great. The thoughts were always there with the Election Commission. And now it has been activated more in the last 1.5 years. And as you quoted in the statement of the CEC, it comes more clearly as if it is going to happen in the near future. But it will require, the road is more complex than you and I or anyone can think of. It is going to have huge amounts of consultations and acceptance, and then also demonstrations and the rest. Because it's a management of not only trust, it's a management of distrust that election management has to do time and again. But I would like to go back to the problem statement a little bit. Now, we have a lot of people. I put it in 3 categories: information, motivation, and facilitation. The right to vote cannot be exercised at will, at my choice, at my home, in my convenience, with the equipment that I want to use. No, the right to vote is there. It's a constitutional right. And it is being done. It is being done more to facilitate. This one is a facilitation exercise. For example, through information and motivation, which is voters' awareness, good amount of cover has been made in the last 10, 15 years. You must have seen it is not 55, 60% anymore. It is 65, 70. We have graduated in certain states. For example, these states which are going to elections, they are all high turnout states. We definitely had 70, 80, 85. Because of SWEEP, systematic voters education and electoral participation, Commission's earnest efforts, its flagship program to bring people into the election fold, we have had an increase. But this particular one, the remote voting, it clashes with certain other rights. I'll tell you, the right to have a job, the right to education, the right to movement, these have to be there. So right to vote. So how these two have to be synchronized is a part of the problem statement. US, for example, allows absentee voting, but they have their own environment. It happens in certain conditions. Election Commission has to create the new environment and ecology and acceptance for the technology that Subimalji is talking about. And
yes,
that is going to take some more time. One more point before I close this particular part is that there has been a lot of facilitation done to make the elections inclusive, including bringing back the lost votes. Or, I was myself associated with the lost vote campaign of a media group recently. They did a very, very spirited campaign how to bring back, and this remote voting came up in that connection as well. But if we are moving certain steps to facilitate NRI voters, which has been done, and also facilitate the postal ballot further by giving electronic transmissions of postal ballots to them so that they can vote more easily. If we have started doing 80 plus and disabled voters, give them a concession of postal ballot possibility as well, then the remote voting in this connection becomes even more desirable, ethical, and urgent, and the necessary ecology has to be created. I think you know, and Subimalji would know, there is a global convention seminar which was created in August 2020, I think, to have all the experiences of the world on blockchain-based remote voting, and implementers, election managers, and also technology people, cybersecurity people, privacy experts, all came together how this big thing is possible. Because in India, unlike other places, we have very combative political system. We are seeing it in now West Bengal. We are seeing it in Tamil Nadu. And no one will give an inch. Believe me, no one is going to give an inch. And then secondly, we have a problem of scale. Just imagine our people who are left out of voting, those 30% who don't vote, that itself is much higher than many countries' electorate coming together. So the technology has to recognize and go and has to meet these demands, which are specially Indian and specially Indian political system based. Yeah.
Mr. Bhattacharjee, so very significant point that Mr. Rawat makes is it is a desirable step, but for that a conducive environment has to be created. Now the problem is in our country it takes time to trust technology. We've seen how digital payments took time largely when it became a necessity, and that's how the transition happened. I think with technology the larger problem is because it is prone to hacking, and that is where the people are scared to trust or, impose complete trust in something like a remote voting. What are the kind of efforts that will be required on part of the Election Commission, of course, to win the trust of the people when it comes to credibility and to ensure that this technology is not hacked?
Yeah, Tina, I think one thing I must outrightly say is that the Election Commission of India has been one of the fantastic institutions which has conducted election over the years, and particularly around the EVM controversy over the last decade, or maybe a little bit more than if you take. Anytime any allegation came, they have always given the opportunity to anyone who alleged, including the parties, to come and approve it, or to come and bring their own experts and show. Nobody has ever been able to do anything. So I think that transparency has already given a lot of confidence that the EVMs are safe, secure. Now, taking advantage of that particular approach of the Election Commission as far as EVMs was concerned, this is the next step towards involving technology. A technology that facilitates a much more inclusive election. And as Mr. Raut has so brilliantly put with so many facts about how, this whole exercise or the whole thinking in the Election Commission has been all these years.
Yes.
But what's very important is that confidence. The confidence that what is going through can't be hacked, neither at the point of the voting, all through that journey, digitally, and then at that particular point of that constituency, or in that particular, returning officer's desk or computer, that everything goes on securely. Now, that is where, again, blockchain comes in. Whatever communication happens is all encrypted. The level of encryption that is generated is today, it cannot be hacked. And that is where, at a simultaneous point of time, all the stakeholders would be able to, see that something like that of a voting has happened. So, first you are eliminating the point that, this hasn't happened or somebody has falsely done. Because even before somebody comes and votes, he is authenticated in a very, very secure way, again, using this technology. And then, of course, the vote that goes and the vote that he has given, his sacred vote that he has provided, that travels with that level of encryption, which cannot be decrypted by anybody, not even, anyone within the Election Commission and all. These are all very well system protected and layered level of checks and balances that happens. As it happened in the EVM's case also, so here it will be even more.
Mr. Rawat, technology can be made foolproof when it comes to security and transparency. But what about physical security? Currently, at polling stations, there is massive security. But for the remote voters, how will the poll panel ensure security to them? How will they ensure that they are actually voting for the candidate of their choice?
That's a partly technology will answer it, which Subimalji was trying to explain. And partly it has to be rules and regulations and physical facilities that the Commission provides. And in fact, that is why the old, very humorous reason that is mentioned against the internet voting is that how do I know that when you are tapping your key in at your home, that there is no gun on my head to do it in a particular manner. I think you are also talking about that. But that is why the Commission has made it clear that it is not internet voting that they're talking about. It has to be a hardware solution, perhaps in the type, the technical possibility which Vimalji is saying, and the blockchain word is being used again and again. But I want to add something to this at this juncture. It has to be Election Commission throughout its journey from the time it was created. It has been on a gradual learning curve. For example, the COVID management. The COVID management story of Bihar has been brought in very large measure to this current 5 elections, right? So, and no one ever thought that there will be a COVID and that has to be a response in election management. Similarly, we are talking about now remote voting in a particular context. And there has been, this will be perhaps one of the most milestone reforms that one has seen in recent times, and it is worth going for. Hillary Clinton described election management in India as gold standard, not for no reason, because there has been learning continuously, and those learnings have been moved into future experiments, I'm sure. And all the technological facilities, IIT Madras, and there is a technology advisory committee of the Election Commission all the time, who help them in securing EVM, in giving answers, and making sure that the whole thing is incorruptible. But it is just like Caesar's wife case, like you have to not only be what you are, but you have to be seen to be what people would like to see you to be. So I'm sure that they will take very cautious step, and step by step. That is why you just mentioned yourself that there will be a pilot in 2-3 months, and maybe there will be testing of waters in very, very careful manner, and there will be complete transparency even in that, when it is being done, what is being demonstrated, who accepts, who doesn't. And I think after full acceptance, whatever time it takes, but Commission is definitely on a very right path, and Election Commission of India is one of the organizations which deserves and which can take up such an experiment, and it is a worthwhile step for all time in the future for the sake of Indian democracy, particularly in terms of electoral participation. Yeah.
So a wonderful initiative, but of course a lot of awareness will be required, a lot of testing and acceptance from all the stakeholders required in the process of election. So time allows me to take up only this much from the experts on today's Big Picture. Thank you to both of you for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts with us on the subject. Pleasure having you on the show. So that's it from us on this edition of the Big Picture. Thank you for your time.